Hi everyone, welcome back to Salesforce Velocity course. In this session, we are going to learn about remote actions and we'll execute a use case and we'll see how we can implement remote actions in our OmniScripts, all right? So before I get started, let me go ahead and open my whiteboard and I will explain the scenario that we are going to implement in this session, all right? So first of all, you would be knowing that we use remote actions to call Apex classes, right? So the scenario is going to do the same. So we'll have an OmniScript where we'll have a screen and there will be a text box where user will provide account name, right? Any search string for account name, and then there will be a next button. Okay. And once user enters something here and clicks on the next button, then it is going to call an integration procedure. Okay. So basically, whenever a keyword is entered here and user clicks on next, then you also have to make sure that whatever keyword was entered here, that is passed on to the integration procedure. Okay, because your integration procedure is then going to make a remote action call to an Apex class. Okay, and in that Apex class, when you write a SOQL to fetch the account details, then it will require the keyword, right? Because you don't want to fetch all the accounts, you want to only fetch the accounts that will match with the keyword entered here, right? So that is why you need to make sure that whatever is entered here, that is passed on to the integration procedure. And integration procedure, when it calls the Apex class and the method, right, it will pass on that parameter value. All right. And once we have the SOQL, once we have the result in the Apex class, we are going to display that into another screen of the same OmniScript. Okay. Same OmniScript, but there'll be another screen. Basically, these are different, actions of OmniScript. Okay. The first one is nothing but step one. This is integration procedure. This is step two. Okay. And then once we have the results back from the remote action, we are going to display those account details here. All right. So this is what we are going to, we'll go and we'll try to achieve. So let's just go ahead and get started. So, all right. So I'll go ahead and first create an OmniScript. All right. So new. So let me account OS. Okay. I'll just copy the same and keep it here. All right, so this is the OmniScript. So the first step is to include a text box, right? So that user can enter some value for that, to search in the account. So in my step one, first of all, let's just go ahead and see what do we get in the JSON, right? Why I'm going ahead and seeing, because you need to understand the node and everything, right? Currently, there's nothing here, right? But let's say if I go back to the design and let me first add an element here, okay? So build, and let me add something to enter here, right? So this is the element. Now, if I go to preview and if I enter here something, okay, let's say test. So here, if you see the JSON structure, right? See the JSON structure, step one and then text one, right? So because I have not given a proper name to the text, right? And I have not given a proper name to the step. So let's just go back to the design and do that first. So first of all, let's just configure this text, okay? Let's just call it as account name. And this name is nothing but the unique identifier of this element, okay? And this would be the label. So in the label, I'll just enter an account name. All right, and then let's just go ahead and rename this step. I will call it as account, and I'm going to give the label also as account. So now my JSON structure should look something like this: account, and then inside account, I should have another element which should have this name, okay? Account name. So let's just go and preview this. So here, right? Account name. All right. So let's just go back to the design now. So we have the first screen ready. The next step is to call the integration procedure, right? And we also have to make sure that we pass this value, right? Whatever the user enters to the integration procedure. So let's just first go ahead and include the integration procedure here. So integration procedure action. And if you include this inside a step, right? It will show as a button. So I don't want to show it as a button. So that is why I dragged it outside the step. Now let's just give the basic details for this integration procedure. Let me call it as get accounts IP. Okay, and we are not going to display these things on the UI, right? I mean, for user, it's not going to get displayed, so it's fine whatever name you give here. Now the integration procedure, as we have not created the integration procedure, right, for this, so let's just go ahead and create a new integration procedure. So let's just click on this, and whatever naming convention, if you are working on a project, so make sure that you're following the naming convention, whatever they are doing. I'm just using whatever is making sense to me. All right, so this is the integration procedure. In this integration procedure, we have to make use of remote action. But before we do that, let's just go back to the OmniScript and make sure that we are passing that variable, right, that value of account to this integration procedure. All right, so I'll go back to the OmniScript. I think I closed it. This was my OmniScript. So in this integration procedure, I have to pass the value of whatever is entered here, right, in this text box. So before we go ahead and do that, right, I want to show you something that, so we just have to make sure that whatever the value we are passing, right, we are passing as per the JSON structure, right? So if the element name here is account name, we cannot directly pass that account name here because there is another node that comes above this, and that node is account. Correct? That is what we saw previously in the JSON, account and then account name. Correct? So in the integration procedure, when we are passing the value, let's just go ahead to the remote properties, and here in the extra payload, I'll explain you that why I'm filling the values in the extra payload, but let me just first configure this. Okay, so here I need to give any variable name. I can give any variable name here. Okay, so I am just going to give it as account, and then in the value, what I want to pass to this variable, in the value, I have to make use of merge syntax. And in that merge syntax, I have to write account colon account name, right? API name of both the nodes, right? So here, account colon, and what was the API name of this one? Account name, right? So copy, and here, account name. All right. And let me show you something. Now, if I go ahead and show you the JSON, let's say if I enter this here, you can see that is why I gave the parameter as account colon account name, right? I wanted to show you action debugger. So in action debugger, let's just check the request data. So try to understand this, okay? Your integration procedure needs only account name, right? But if you see, it is passing on a lot of other details, correct? And also, if you see, there is an extra element child, not exactly child element, but there's an extra key that is created is account, right? This is the one that we added in the key value pair in the integration procedure remote properties, right? So it is not part of this JSON. But if you see here, there are a lot of extra details, but we don't want to send everything. We only want to send this, right? That is all integration procedure cares about, because this is what it is going to pass to the Apex class, right? It doesn't need everything else. So let's just go back to the design, and I'll go here under remote properties. We have in extra payload, there is this option, right? Send only extra payload. So that is why, if the whole JSON is not required, then you can choose what you whatever you want to send. So next. And here, the error that you're seeing, right, it is because the integration procedure that we have created, it's not activated yet, right? Once we activate it, activate the version, this error is gonna go away. So let's just see the request that we are sending now. So now you can see, right, account, Acme, only this much. And this is what integration procedure is That is what it requires right now, because it is the only thing that it is going to use and send it to the Apex class. All right. So let's just go back to the design here. So we are done with this step. Okay. Let's just go back to the integration procedure now, and now remote action. So in remote action, get account details. Okay, so here we have to mention the Apex class that we want to call, and then we also have to then mention the Apex method, right? And along with the class and method call that we are going to do, we also have to mention we have to pass the parameter, right? That we have received in the OmniScript, right? That account parameter here. We need to pass this, right? Because this holds that value, right? Whatever the user will be entering here. So let's just go ahead and pass this parameter. I'm going to mention this class and method name, but I just want to add the parameter first. So the parameter is going to be, again, here you can name whatever you want, okay? Because whatever you're naming it here, then that is how you have to access it in your Apex class. So here it is going to be account, and here we have to make use of merge syntax, and what is the name that we have given over there is same, right? Account. So that's it, right? Now, the Apex class and the remote method. So I have already created the controller class. Let me go ahead and show you. All right. So this is my class name. Let me first give the class name and method name, and then I'll explain. So this is the class name and this is the method name. So this is the method name. Now what integration procedure will do, it will call this class and it will go inside this method, and then it will also apply the parameter, right, that we have passed over here. So account and then account. Okay, this is fine. Let's just go back to the class. All right. So whenever you're writing a class which you want to access from remote action, the first, there are few key points that you always have to keep in mind. It has to be a global class. All right. The second thing is that you always have to implement a velocity open interface. And this is something that should be your namespace. By namespace, I mean this, right? You have to navigate your installed packages. Let me refresh this. So this is nothing but the namespace, right? So whatever the namespace you have for your package, right, that is what you have to mention over there. So namespace dot and then this interface. Now this interface includes this invoke method. So if you know about interfaces, if there are any methods, right, predefined methods in the interface, then you have to implement those methods, right? And this is one of the methods which is which you would have to implement. So invoke method, in invoke method, these are the parameters that is already passed. So method name, input, output map, and then options. All right. So don't worry about everything. I'm not going to explain everything, but at least whatever we are using, we can just go through that right now. Correct. So here and this structure is something that you can also find in there's this Salesforce documentation, right? I can give the link in the description if you want to go through it. But I mean, all it does is that it explains the basic structure of that Apex class that you would want to call from the remote action. All right. So here in this method, you have to check, right? Method name dot equals. If it finds this method, right, get account details. So here, whatever you mention in your integration procedure here as the method name, right? Here, it should be exactly as this one, right? So if it finds this in the integration procedure, then it is going to take the input, output, and options as the parameter, right? And you have to have the same in when you're implementing this method. All right. So when you're implementing this method, what are you getting in the parameter value? You're getting the account name, right? So that is why we have created a string for account name, and then string dot, I mean, we are converting this. Okay, so string dot value of input dot get account, and where we are holding that value, we are holding that value inside this, right? So that is why we are taking the value from this particular variable. So once we have the value, we'll have the value over here, and we are just going to make the SOQL by using this value. Okay, so here what I've done is that if this is blank, then return all the accounts. I don't have that many accounts in the org. Otherwise, it's just based on your condition, right? Whatever you want to do, you can configure the method as required. But what I'm trying to do here is that if it is like, blank, then I'm like, querying all the accounts. Otherwise, I'm only querying the account which is matching with the keyword that the user has entered. Okay. And then at last, I'm returning this and I'm mapping this to this particular key. Okay. And this is the key that, you have to be careful about using this key when you're configuring your next step in your OmniScript. Because when you are configuring the next step in your OmniScript, this is what you would be using to display the data, because this holds your results now. So this is nothing but your list of accounts, right? Whatever you have as part of this SOQL result, and this is going to hold that data. So let's just go back to the OmniScript. Um, and then here we have to include another step. So step. And in this step, let's just give this step some names. But before that, we should actually see the JSON structure. All right. So let me first go ahead and review this. So that, because by seeing the response structure, right, we should be designing that what we are like, because as I said, right, that everything that you see here, right, in step, right, whatever the name of the step and whatever the name of the elements are, it is going to basically like, try to match it with your JSON structure. And if it's not matching, then it's not going to display anything, right? So let's just go ahead and first preview this and see the response structure. We also have to activate this version otherwise. And before activating this version, let's just add something to the response action, right? Because so this integration procedure, when it calls your Apex class and method, whatever it returns, it has to keep somewhere, right? So this is the response action. So in response action, you're just going to pass the element name of this particular step, right? Remote action step here. I mentioned everything because I want to display like, like whatever I'm querying here, right? From account, I'm querying different things, right? Maybe I want to display name, phone, industry description, all of it, right? So that is why I'm just passing like, the whole JSON here in the response. So once we have this, let's just go ahead and activate this version. If you're not going to activate it, then it's not going to work in the OmniScript. So once you activated this, let's just go back to the OmniScript. Let me refresh and I'll just clear the log. I'll just enter here something and let's check this out. So here, if I see my request data, this is what I had entered. And if I see the response, right? So let me just copy this and let me show you what it has. All right. So here, if you see, um, so we have to make sure that in our step 2, right? This is, let me go back to the designer. Uh, so let me first include a step, okay? Because we want to now display the results, right? So this is my step 2. And here, let me give some name, okay? Or let it be like this. All right, step 1. And if I go here, so whatever I am going to configure in my next step, right? In this, in order to display the fields, we have to make sure that the structure that is here, right? It has to match with the response structure. And this is my response structure, right? This is the node, and then we have this node, and then under this node I have this information, right? ID, name, phone, industry, whatever I want to actually display on that screen, right? So uh, let's say we want to display name and phone. So I'm going ahead and first of all I'm going to include a edit block. Okay, so let me take an edit block here. And in this edit block, I am going to include two fields, right? For phone and name. So text, and let me text, and then let's just take one more. You can include as many as you want. Edit. Hold on. So you have to make sure that this is in edit mode when you're trying to drag something here. All right. So let me first, make this one. Where did that element go? Let me delete this. And let me check the elements inside. This is text one, right? But where is that text one? Okay, I need to click on edit. And this is my text one. And I also want to include another text here. All right. So this would be for my phone. All right. You can include for as many fields as you want. I'm only going to display name and phone. Okay. So here, all right. So now I have to, as I said, right, that we have to make sure that this matches with the response structure. If it does not match, right, then it is not going to display the data. So the node is this, right? It is starting from here, IP result, then it has accounts, and then it has the field names, right? So let me just copy this and let me go back to this step. And in the name, right, because this is the unique identifier and this is where I can do the mapping, right? So this is my parent node. And then in the parent node, in this edit block, I will map it with the next node. Okay. So the next node is going to be this one, accounts. I'll go back, and here in the name, I'm going to make and in the label, we can give anything, right? So in the label, let me give it as this. And even for this, right, I can change the label. Let's just give the label as list of accounts. All right. So I have this step. I have mapped this step with this particular root node. And after that, I have the edit block, and I have mapped the edit block with this. After that, I'll be able to access name, phone, and the other fields. So let me now in the elements, right, the two text fields that I entered in the edit block, I have to map it with these values, okay, with these keys. So the key of the first text has to be same as this. So let me go here and so text one, and this is the API name, right? So this is where we have to do the mapping. And in the label also, we can give the same. You can change the label as per whatever you need. The next one is phone. So let me give the element name as phone, and label also I'll give it as phone. All right, so I think we are good now. So now it should match with the nodes that we have in the response structure. So every time that let's say if you are facing this issue that you're not getting the result, then that would be probably because you have not as per your response structure, your script the steps whatever you have inside this, right? It's not matching with the JSON structure. So all right, now let's just go to preview and check this out. All right, so this is still not visible. Let's go back to the designer. In the edit block, actually, we have to make these fields visible. So in the edit block, if you go to the elements inside the edit block, right, you have to include these values. So now I've included these values. Now I'll go back to the preview. And let me do it again. And now you can see, right, the values, outfront media, and then the phone. So I mean, and if I, let's say, enter something else, right, which has more number of accounts like in the result. So I have different accounts with this keyword, Acme. So let me go ahead and try this. So you can see, right, it returned me all the results back, right? And also, if I go back to the design for this particular, so in edit block, there are different options available for the display mode, right? So if I go back to the design and in edit block, let me select mode is this. There's something as display mode, just trying to find that. Edit block mode here, right? So table or cards or there are different options. So although I have aligned it just to look like a table, but you can also choose this mode. So if I go back, let's just see if there's a difference. I think the alignment was almost same, so I don't think that it is going to make any big difference. But yeah, I mean, it looks more like a table, right? So this is how you can call your remote action, and then using using remote action of integration procedure, you can call your Apex class and method and pass the parameter, right? So before ending the session, let's just go through everything again what we did, right? So I'll go back to the design. The first step that we did was to create a step in, like, we created an OmniScript. In that OmniScript, in the first step we added an element here, right? Text element. And in that text element we have given the API name of this text element as account name, right? And we also renamed the step name as account, because this matters a lot, right? Otherwise you'll just get lost that okay, what is what, what should I be passing to the next step. So make sure that you are very careful about whatever you're naming, so that you'll be knowing in your next step, okay, so what you should be referring. All right, so the step name is this and the element unique name is this. And then after that, we are calling an integration procedure. In that integration procedure, we are passing parameters, right? And we are passing the parameters as extra payload. And we are only sending the extra payload, so that we should not be sending everything along with the JSON structure, but only one node, which we are calling it as account. So this is something which is not mentioned in any of the previous step. This is like a variable that you can give, like any key, right? You can define the key by yourself. But this is something that is coming from the previous step. So account colon account name, account colon, and then account name, the element name of this element. All right. And you're passing this particular key and value to your integration procedure. And then in your integration procedure, you are calling an Apex class. All right. And in that Apex class, you're calling this method, Apex method. And along with that, you are passing this particular input. And what was the input? The input was this, right? In account. So again, here, this is something, this is not coming from OmniScript. Okay. This is coming from OmniScript. This is like a key that you can define. Here, I could have written account name or list of accounts, anything that I would have wanted. But then you have to assign the value to that particular key, right? And that value is coming from OmniScript. And we are using merge syntax here. So here in OmniScript, this is the name, right? Whatever the key you have given here, you have to use the merge syntax and use that key so that it can take the value and assign to this one, right? And then when you are calling your Apex class, in your Apex class, you are going to use this as the parameter, right? So if I go back to the Apex class, all right, this is what, right? This is the input that you have given in the integration procedure, right? So this is what we are using to fetch the value that was entered by the user on the OmniScript, which came along to this Apex class through the integration procedure, right? And then we are using this key to fetch the data from Salesforce. And then we are passing the results, right? Where is the result? The result is stored in this list. We are passing the result and we are mapping it to this particular string, right? This particular list accounts. So now now you have the results here, right? But when you have the result, you still have to execute this action, right? Response action, so that it can receive the response. So you just have to receive the response, whatever you received here, right? So basically the element name of this can be passed here in the send JSON path, like the whole thing, right? Because you can choose, right, whatever you want to receive. Or if that there are just selective ones, then you can again make use of, I still have to if I wanted to show you, then I would have to kind of deactivate this version. But then there's a way also to filter that out also, what are the nodes that you want to use. But here you can also give the whole JSON path. So once your integration procedure has the response, let's just go back to the OmniScript. After that, you had to display the results here. So make sure that once you have reached till this step, right? Execute the script and see the response structure using the action debugger. So that in that response structure, you will get to know that how you have to name all these little steps inside this particular step. So the response structure for me was this, right? So that is why I tracked it from here, that okay, the root node should be this, then there should be another node for accounts, and after that I'll be able to access the elements. And that's exactly what I did. So I renamed the step to that root node, and then I took like an edit block and I renamed the edit block to the second node, right? And then I could access these elements. So name and phone, right? And then same thing, I mapped it to the text fields that I have inside it, right? Name and then phone. All right. So I think I believe that you would have understood at least this example for sure. And I'm hoping that now you will have a clear understanding of how to pass variables from OmniScript to integration procedure, and then how to call Apex class from integration procedure, and how to pass parameters from integration procedure to Apex class, and how to receive the results in your Apex class, and how to get it to your integration procedure, right? And after that, how you are going to handle the response. All right, so that's it about remote actions, and I hope you understood this scenario, and I'll see you in the next one. So thanks for watching.